Now, I don't think I would be very wrong if I said that Gothic music doesn't really have an overall topic. Don't confuse it with the themes of Gothic music, that's very different. The overall themes of it are usually about the dark side of humanity and feelings like sorrow. That usually stays the same, even across bands in the genre. But the ways they examine those themes and the topics at hand change a lot. Taking a few examples from one of my favorite goth/post-punk bands, Susie and the Banshees, the song Cities in Dust from Tinderbox is just about Pompeii, and 92 Degrees is about a Ray Bradbury quote and a line from the movie It Came from Outer Space.
I read an article once. Lower temperatures, people are easy going. Over 92, it's too hot to move, but just 92, people get irritable.
See how they are both about either death or murder? So the dark sides of human emotion, but that they examine them in different ways. Now that I've established what I'm talking about, I want to talk about one of my favorite Susie and the Banshees songs, and how it relates to the heinous acts committed by a sexually sadistic murderer. Night Shift is a song from the 1981 album Juju by Susie and the Banshees. Out of every song in the album, I would argue that this one is the most haunting. Both in the topic it handles, which I will get to later, but also in the way it's played. Compared to the song that comes before it, Monitor, and after it, Sin in My Heart, it is very noticeably different from them in sound. Instead of the near-shouting vocals of Sin in My Heart or the fast-paced lyrics read like slam poetry in Monitor, it is mostly very calm. It's filled with melisma, I hope I'm using that term correctly, so the extension of syllables. And Susie's voice sounds more shaky than how she normally sings. Overanalyzing it, I think I could say that it's supposed to convey some level of disgust and horror at the events being examined. A man who murdered 13 women and left 7 others with lifelong traumatic experiences. The British serial killer, the Yorkshire Ripper, or Peter William Sutcliffe. I'll try my best to briefly go over this very large case spanning over 6 years of constant murders. And just before we start, this topic involves sexual assault, so just a disclaimer. Sutcliffe was a serial killer in the UK, active from the year 1975 to 1981. He was known to primarily target sex workers, which is why the song by Susie and the Banshees is titled Night Shift. His first murders and attempted murders were in 1975, and they involved seemingly random women in residential areas. Although he seemed to dwell in these neighborhoods for about a year, he would shift his focus mostly to red light districts and prostitutes in 1976, likely because he saw them as easy targets, as the police at the time didn't view sex workers very highly. So that means if one was murdered, the chances were the search for the murderer would be less intense than if he murdered someone in a more socially acceptable position. The number of murders committed by Sutcliffe would go up in 1977, with a total of 3 women murdered. I want this video to not get taken down, so I'll have to skip on some gruesome details, but he would also start maiming and exposing the bodies of his victims this year. 4 more years would pass in the same manner until he was finally caught by police in the year 1981, where he would confess to being the Yorkshire Ripper. One of the most terrifying parts of this story, besides the murders taking place of course, is the fact that he was interviewed by police 9 times throughout their 5-year investigation, and let go every single time. There are of course many more details I haven't covered, so if you would like to read more about the case, there is always the free Wikipedia page, and a lot of books written about the murderer. I've already explained where the song gets its name Night Shift from, but let's delve a bit deeper into the song and its lyrics. The song is written from the point of view of the Ripper, which we can understand from the choruses and the refrains in the song. In the chorus, the victims of the murderer are referred to as his night shift sisters, who are awaiting their nightly visitor. The refrain of the song mostly talks about the specifics of his victims. Fuck the mothers, kill the others is directed at the murderer's choice of victims, as some of the workers Sutcliffe targeted had children. His very first victim, in fact, was 28-year-old Wilma Mary McCann, a mother of 4. His tendencies of assault and toying with the bodies of his victims is explored in the second verse, with the third, fourth, and fifth lines being about his attraction to his victims, as one of his later victims would be assaulted after her death. Finally, in the last chorus of the song, Susie sings about the methods the Ripper used to kill his victims. Sutcliffe's preferred weapon of choice in most of his murders and assaults was a hammer, which he would use to hit his victims in the head with. However, in his later years, he would switch to using a knife to finish the job after attacking his victims with a hammer. This is what is talked about in the line, "A new vocation in life, my love with a knife." For a scene and genre which handles the dark side of humanity and was very prevalent in the 90s inside of the United Kingdom, I don't think it's any surprise that Susie and the Banshees decided to cover this topic. The hunt for Sutcliffe was a very publicized one and also one of the most expensive manhunts in British history, and like I've said, spanned over many years. The hunt itself was filled with difficulties, with the prejudice of the police against sex workers being a very important problem, alongside inefficient methods and the police's mishandling of excess information, which would only delay their efforts to catch the serial killer. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, I would really appreciate it if you could subscribe, and have a great day.